2015 Myth coming from the Balboa Winery in Walla Walla, Washington, in the Rocks District. You guys, if you are not drinking Washington wines, you are missing out. I visited there last year and was blown away by the quality of wines up there, and we're getting them at a fraction of the price still. So if you are someone that's looking for a great value, that wants a big structured red wine, Washington should definitely be on your radar. And from these particular parts, which is, I think, producing some of the best examples of it in the entire state. So we are on the eastern side of Washington, where Walla Walla actually sort of straddles the Oregon-Washington border. So if you see Walla Walla, it's not necessarily in Washington. It could be in Oregon, which is kind of a fun fact. This is actually a blend of mostly Cabernet Sauvignon. So it's 72% Cabernet Sauvignon, 16% Cabernet Franc, and 12% Merlot, coming from one of the best winemakers in the region and from one of the best vineyards in the region. So this is a blend of predominantly Cabernet Sauvignon, 72% Cabernet Sauvignon, 16% Cabernet Franc, and 12% Merlot, coming from one of the best vineyards in the region. This is coming from the Eidolon Vineyard, and this is being made by one of the best winemakers in the region, Tom Glaze, who started at Léocole back in the day. This is one of the most iconic wineries in all of the region, and he got to start there and then started this particular winery that we've got in our glass today. It is 2024, which means this wine has a little bit of delicious age on it. And that's the first thing that you should be noticing when you look at this glass, is just the slightest amount of, you know, a little bit of like bricking, as we say, on the side here. So this is not like super bright and super reflective. This is, as you can see, just starting to get into the subtle territory of aging, if you can believe it. I know 2015 seems like yesterday, but here we are. 9 years of age on this wine. I love wines at about this point because I find that they just start getting like, they start losing a little bit of that baby fat, but they start getting all that really beautiful, savory, earthy, those like fun umami things that come out in big red wines like this. They start to just kind of dance at this delicate point in their lives at that like 9 to 12-year mark. On the nose. Oh, my goodness. Did I mention umami? I mean, a little bit of like mushroom, a little bit of leather. I mean, there's lots of fruit on here, but to me, that's like these things are coming up in full force right now. And I predict that as this wine continues to open, you're going to get more and more of that mixture. This is a wine that I would not be afraid to decant a little bit. I would say 20 minutes in a decanter would be really beautiful to start lifting out some of those aromatics and softening the texture of this wine. And speaking of texture, I mean, my goodness, if you are someone that loves a full-bodied wine, but you don't love those grippy tannins that feel like your mouth's being dried out, age is your best friend. This is something that you want to look for in life, not just with wines like this. This is a beautiful example of what age can do to tannin. They can soften them. They're still very much there. They're still very much present. It still feels like a full-bodied wine, but you lose a little bit of that grippiness, and it gives you something that's really beautiful and very velvety and soft and smooth. This is a rich, full-bodied wine, but it's not aggressively so. And I say that because I think some people think of wines like this because they're, you know, they're big monster wines, they take over. This actually has a really delicate balance that feels more on the restrained side. This is listed at 14.5% alcohol, which means it's right there in the middle. It's not above 15%, but it's not super low like in the 13s. And I note that because I think it really shows in the glass. Alcohol is not everything. It's not always indicative of what's going on, but it can lend itself to the body and the texture and the perceived sort of intensity of a wine. This to me sits right down the middle. And if I were eating something with this, I would definitely want something that reflects that. So you don't want your biggest cut of meat, but you don't want your lightest. I'd definitely be in the red sort of animal proteins. So your steaks, your lambs, things like that. But if you're someone that loves to do something more with vegetables, I would be looking at mushrooms for this, right? I think there's a lot of umami on here. I think there's a delicious little element of soy on here. So I would do like some grilled mushrooms, maybe like a brush of soy sauce, and then some charred vegetables would be absolutely perfect with this wine. I think this wine is at an absolute perfect point in its life, but don't be afraid to give it a few more years if you like. That said, I mean, this is a wine that you should be stocking up on. It's only 445 cases produced. So I wouldn't be afraid to buy a case of this wine and just sort of watch it over the course of the next 10 to 15 years and see what it does. Because I think this is an excellent example of what is happening in this region. And it's also an excellent example of a full bodied red wine with about 10 years of age right now.